Welcome everybody to Eye of the Serpent Tarot for another pick a card. So today's pick a card is inspired primarily by my just receiving a deck that I backed in Kickstarter, which is the Gothic Literature Tarot. You can see three of the major arcana cards there by Syrian Shadow, who also did the beautiful Haunted Manor deck that I've used before and that I will in fact be using in this reading. I love his work. It's very dark and intense and mysterious. And that's the kind of energy that we want to explore here. And it's interesting because the other part of the inspiration, and I want to give a shout out to the lovely Grizel from Tough Doll Tarot. She's a fantastic reader. I've collaborated with her in the past on her other channel. So absolutely amazing and a lovely person. She comes up with some of the best topics I've noticed on Tough Doll Tarot. And I've been kind of thinking, like, I don't know, what do I want to do? Gothic Literature Tarot, it's intense, it's deep. How do I want to explore that? And then I saw not that long ago she did a set of readings that were Who is Haunted by You, I think was the way that she titled it. And I thought, that's so Gothic literature. So thank you, Grizel, for the inspiration, because what I thought I would do with this is, because I really wanted to showcase this new tarot deck in the theme of what it's meant to be about, which is that Gothic literature, which is about the famous characters and the famous situations from that and the sort of energy of that. That seemed to be a perfect thing to do. But just to make it slightly different, so I'm just not repeating what Grizel did, I thought I'd look at it on two levels. I'd look, firstly, who or what is haunted by you. So it could be a person, it could be a situation, it could be a place, when you think about all the ways that we can haunt. And then on the other side, who or what haunts you. So we look, and are they the same thing? Is it an interchangeable sort of Kathy Heathcliff, you are my soul, I can't live without my soul type of thing? Or are they two very different things? So I thought that would be really interesting and a good way to use this deck, because with the major arcana, as I'll go through in a minute, like there's all these different characters from different Gothic literature. So when the major arcana comes up, we'll get that added like level to reading the tarot, of understanding the story and so forth with that. I may or may not go into great detail about that, but we'll just sort of see what comes up and when it sort of inspires me to do that. But it certainly does give that sort of sense of people in a place, in a situation, which is probably how this is going to play out. I wouldn't be surprised if one or more of them is very romantic, because there's often a lot of kind of intense romance in Gothic literature as well, but we'll see what we get. So you of course can go to more than one reading if you like, but to potentially help with the choice, to give us our first sort of taste of what the energy may be, and this was almost the first part of the question, like who or what is haunted by you. I actually shuffled and asked for the major arcana. And this is not saying the actual characters of Gothic literature, because they're actually fictional characters, but something of that energy is our entry point. And then we'll have a look at how that plays out, whether it's a different energy for what haunts you and what might connect the two to set the scene. So for pile number 1, we have the Devil card and Count Dracula. For pile number 2, we have the Hermit and Roderick Usher. For anybody who's not familiar with that, the Fall of the House of Usher is the Gothic story. So you're looking at a scion of a family with all its secrets, dark secrets and so forth. And for pile number 3, we have Mina Harker with Strength. So Mina Harker, of course, being one of the heroines of Dracula as well. So that's sort of interesting. There might be some connection between pile 1 and pile 3 for some of you. Who knows? But you do you. If you always go to pile 2, go to pile 2. Do whatever works for you. Go to as many readings as you like. But when you know what reading or readings you want to go to, the timestamps are in the description box below, and I'll see you there. Welcome, pile 1, to your reading. And I think we're starting off with a juicy one right from the beginning, which is probably not surprising if you've come to the one with Count Dracula. I think most people know the figure of Dracula, the kind of, the sort of goat, so to speak, of all vampires, the original and the best, so to speak. So I think it's a perfect choice for the Devil card, being a seductive, manipulative, intelligent, intense, dangerous, exciting sort of energy, but also the very, very kind of, with the danger, the very great risk sort of energy as well. There's something here about someone who is haunted by you, is either haunted by your seductive energy or has that energy, but there is sort of something maybe it's the one that they loved and lost. It could be anything like that. But it's interesting because when we have the haunted, or actually, I go to this first. The astrology, to bring it together, is really interesting. We got the solar eclipse, and I found that really interesting in relation to Dracula because, of course, a lot of the original lore about Dracula or about vampires was sort of like put out in Dracula, and there's like lots of different versions of that now, and the more modern versions of vampire stories. But one of the key ones was, generally speaking, they didn't go out in the sunshine. They couldn't go out in the sunshine because then they would burn to smithereens, basically. So it's interesting we get the solar eclipse and revolution. This feels to me like a moment, like I feel like this person is haunted by you about a moment in time, and you may equally be haunted by them, or you may be haunted by situations, I think, where you've come close to the fire, like a moth to the flame, and managed to escape, and I'll get to that. But there was a moment in time, I think, where possibly the connection could have been made, but it wasn't. That's what I feel is going on here. Now, whether it's most likely going to be about love or passion, particularly, with Dracula, but in general, in terms of the energy of what the person haunted by you or the situation, and I think it's a person haunted by you, is represented by apple, because apple is all about temptation. Apple is all about taking the bite, whether it's, you go back to the biblical references of the knowledge of good and evil through to, or something like Snow White, or is it Snow White? Whatever fairy story it is where the heroine, bites the apple and that has poison in it. There's this whole energy of stepping over the threshold, taking the bite, risking something with this energy. And I feel like there was a moment in time where that could have happened, but I feel like it didn't. And I don't know whether it's because of the fear of the person. We'll sort of see as we go through what the energy around this is. But it might have also been you, because what haunts you, and I think it's more a sort of, not necessarily just this person, though this person may represent, the one that got away or something like that. But with the swamp, this is all about being careful, like feeling like you're in a risky or a difficult situation, feeling like you have to be very careful in how you deal with it. And it's interesting because the swamp, when you talk about water, bodies of water and so forth, in Jungian terms and things like that, it's often about sort of like desire and passion and all of those sort of things. So I feel like there's something here about you're very careful. You're very careful because I think you're drawn to the intensity and the seductiveness, but you're also wise enough to be careful going through it. But I think what might haunt you, there might be a situation where there was someone who was very attractive, but had a reputation or was dangerous, or you kind of knew it was a moment in time, it wasn't going to last, and that was going to have its own situation around it, or that it was just going to be murky to get through. So I think that you're haunted by the fact that almost like there's a marriage between the intensity and seductiveness of something and the danger of it. So I think you're careful. And there's a lot to be said for that, but there's equally the side of, well, could you miss something that was important, or, could you take something as a moment in time? It actually reminds me in a way of a story my mother told me about when she was very young, and she was at a dance where soldiers had come in because of her age, it was sort of around World War II. And she met this man, they danced and everything. And of course, he was then going to be on a ship the next night or whatever. And he just said, or an airplane, whatever he was. And he said, we're ships that pass in the night. And it was sort of like this really beautiful romantic thing. I mean, nothing happened beyond dancing, but it was like a really beautiful romantic motif. It almost feels like there's a bit of that about this, that there might be that you're haunted by your carefulness in a situation. But it might also be that you're haunted by times where you weren't careful, and so you're very aware of that, so now you are very careful. So it sort of depends. We'll see what we get as more information with the tarot. But I think it's all about those moments when something could happen. And if you think about whether it's in Gothic literature or happens a lot, I've seen it a lot in like romantic sort of stuff in movies and stuff. That moment where the two almost kiss, like it's really potent sort of moment, and then something happens that interrupts it, or there's a failure of courage, I guess. That's kind of what this feels like. But I do feel like the person concerned either was equally, they may not have been a Dracula energy at all. They might actually have seen you more as a Dracula thing. Like they might have been very attracted to you and scared of the outcome. But you've also been burnt as well too. So really, really interesting. And like there was this moment where it could have happened, where Dracula could have been out in the daylight because it was an eclipse. Like it could have been brought to the surface and it wasn't. That's what I feel we're talking about here. So it is very romantic, this one. So I think you'll know whether this fits you or not. And for you, whether it's a pattern, because it could be a pattern with that, but there's a particular person who's really haunted by what didn't happen, I think. The bite that wasn't taken, the risk that wasn't taken. So let's get a little bit more information. So we're going to start looking a little bit more at this, about the person, and I think it's a person for you that's haunted by you. Then we're going to look at you and what haunts you. So it's like the person and why, you and why, and then we'll kind of look at bringing it all together. What could release for you the intensity of this, both in the past and in the present? So firstly, a little bit more about this person who is haunted by you and why that is. And excuse me, I still have a bit of a cough from the sickness I had recently. So Knight of Skulls reversed, Knight of Torches. So that's kind of the Knight of Pentacles, the Knight of Torches. The Lovers reverse, Catherine and Heathcliff. Oh, wow. Yeah, it does have a very Cathy and Heathcliff feeling about it, all of this, but we'll get to that. The Nine of Ravens, which is the Nine of Swords, I believe, and the Page of Torches, which is the Page of Wands. So I think this is the centre point. Everything's kind of like the solar eclipse reversed here. So the Lovers, of course, is in general with tarot a decision about relationship. This is what is haunting this person is a decision that was not taken. And the Lovers is represented here by Catherine and Heathcliff. Most people would be, again, aware, I would think, of Wuthering Heights. If not, it is a story about, effectively, it's almost like the original Twin Flames sort of story. It's about two people who have different issues around social status and background that gets in the way of this all-encompassing connection that is so strong that it's like each other's soul. And it's kind of the reverberation of the tragedy of that, the denial of that situation, how it doesn't happen. That causes this incredibly intense relationship sort of dynamic. So there's something, this is definitely about something that didn't occur, that somebody is really haunted by an attraction to you, and I think a very intense attraction to you that didn't occur. And they may literally still feel with that sort of energy that you are their twin flame or their soulmate or something like that. So they feel like either you or they were not able to be loyal enough to this or to see it through. There was a lot of passion, but I feel like at that moment where it could have happened, instead of committing to it, there was a sort of moving away. So whether they did that or you or a bit of both, this whole thing of the thing that didn't occur, that didn't manifest in a way, is the haunting energy. And it really worries them. Like they probably dream about you, probably like nine of swords. Like this is sort of something that does very much vex them because the passion is still there with them. The Page of Torches, the Page of Wands, they feel like it still could happen. But so it may be someone who's still in your life, or it may be someone who, as I say, you're the one that got away. But this was intense, and there was a moment. So I really do think if you are this pile is for you, you're going to know who this person is. I don't think it's like you wouldn't know. It doesn't feel. It feels like there must have been a moment where it almost happened or where they almost made the move. Like I think it's very palpable. I don't think it's sort of someone who was a secret admirer, and they really think that intensity is there. So they're haunted by you. Now, if you are haunted by them and the moment not taken, it could be, well, there is still an opportunity. But if it's you felt, they may feel that, it's all very intense, but it's a dynamic that's tricky. And it is a dynamic that's tricky, I've got to say. Like, it's wildly romantic, but when we have romance that is based on denial, that usually means there's something not quite right. If there's only certain moments in time where almost unique circumstances have to be in place for it to work. There's some sort of other impediment, I think. But so you may remain a bit haunted by them if it's that, but like knowing that you can't do it, it's too dangerous, or you may think I'm actually thinking this is limited like that, but it's not. So let's have a look at you. Let's see, because I think it is a mutual thing here, though I don't know with you, and this is what we'll see with the tarot, is whether it's like this is for you, you often feel that you have to be really careful, like you're a little bit difficult to get close to, for instance, and there's no criticism meant there. It's just that you may be very, very careful. So that would increase the haunting for this person because they wanted to move forward. You know, they want to take the bite, literally. And your resistance might have actually, if they have this sort of like mindset about passion, while it consumes them, it's all consuming, it may also be the thing that made them kind of addicted to you. So then let's see what are you haunted by and why? Wheel of Fortune, 7 of Skulls, which is 7 of Pentacles, 3 of Ravens, which is Swords, 6 of Torches, Wands, Ace of Ravens, reversed. Okay, all right. You really do doubt whether something is as good as it seems. With Wheel of Fortune, it's like, is this the right time? And there's a lot about timing here. So I think you may know that there was this moment in time. So you're a little bit haunted by that. But on the other hand, the character that is used to portray the Wheel of Fortune is Dorian Gray. And again, if you're not familiar with the story, Dorian Gray was a rather dissolute, aristocratic type, probably in like roughly Victorian England. I'm not sure exactly the time period that it was based in, but he had a portrait, and the portrait, all that he did in terms of dissolute activity would absorb that. He would stay looking beautiful and young while the portrait got older and uglier with whatever he did. So there's a sort of a sense here of what is the reality. So I think for you, it links with the swamp thing too. I think there was something very entrancing about this person, and I think you may draw that kind of intensity. You're very much reticence draws it like a moth to a flame, and you may be to some degree drawn like a moth to a flame to it as well too. But I feel like you are haunted by issues around what is real, you know, and like what is lasting. It's very interesting that we got the Knight of Skulls, the Knight of Pentacles reversed with the Wheel of Fortune. You may have had a very strong sense, and it could have been true, that the moment in time is one thing, but the capacity for that to last is a complete other, because the Wheel of Fortune is definitely an energy that goes up sometimes and goes down sometimes. So I think you're like the intensity, the peak intensity of it, but can it last? It might have been something that was so intense that how do you make that domestic and like something of years of relationship or whatever. So you're haunted a bit about that, and whether it could grow with the 7 of Skulls. Like when is the timing going to be right for something that could grow? And I think you feel about this situation, and maybe about a number around you, that if you don't think it can last just the vicissitudes of time, like if you think it won't grow, then you will separate out from it. But it is a bit haunting because you're making an assessment rather than knowing for sure, because in these situations you can't know for sure unless you jump into it. This is interesting too, because part of this is you, as I say, part of it is what you do, but you draw this. I think there's something, 6 of Torches, I think there's something very charismatic and captivating about you. So I think you draw these sort of people. You would represent others' victory in a way. So I think there's that, and I think that you become aspirational to others and so forth. But I think there's also within you to maintain that. It's sort of like it's not that you're holding out, but it's like, you know, what would be the thing that would win? I'm not going to connect to anything that would not be something that would grow. And as a result, sometimes even the concept of a relationship sort of like doesn't manifest right from the get-go. So I feel like you have a very prescribed idea of what would get you through the swamp. You draw a lot of people to you. You know that you draw a lot of intensity, but I think you draw very equally seductive types. Like I think you're both very seductive. So I think you're careful with it, and the other in this case romanticizes denial. So I think in that situation you're probably right. to let it be a haunting, the ship that passed in the night, as opposed to having something happen. But for you, there is a question about whether the whole situation of relationships haunt you a bit. Like whether it's sort of like the thing that is passionate in the moment, will that grow? And you may have to try and work out, and this, we're going to look at what will release you here. Where is the balance? Where is the thing that exists beyond the solar eclipse, like where is the thing that can last, that is both passionate and can last? So let's just sort of say, let's get 4 cards about what could release both you and the person who's haunted by you, but primarily you, because this is your reading, from the thrall of this. The Hanged Man reversed, the 4 of Ravens, so the 4 of Swords, the 6 of Skulls, so the 6 of Pentacles, the King of Chalices. Okay, all right. So I think there's a very specific thing for you actually around what could work in a relationship, which I'll get to, which I think is being shown by those 2 cards. But firstly, it's definitely saying a different way of thinking about things, because you're shutting down the thinking. And so it becomes this haunting, when would I find the right person? When can I feel that it's secure? And you don't explore. So it's like, so there's something around that. But interestingly enough, I think for you, you have to see proof of emotional authenticity and caring and material basis, material value. And I don't mean that in any kind of just mercenary way. I think for you, the thing that will release you is that if you need to withdraw, you're very charismatic, so you're drawing a lot of people in. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that it's saying that you need to kind of withdraw from the flirtation almost, unless you see this sort of energy. And the interesting thing about it is, I normally prefer the 6 of Skulls or 6 of Pentacles reverse for a relationship, because it's equals. But I actually think here with the King of Chalices, you need someone who is emotionally more secure within themselves. You're drawing people who are very seductive and charming and all that, but they're not necessarily emotionally secure. You need somebody who's very emotionally secure, emotionally mature, and someone who possibly is maybe more powerful than you, or has more money, or is more settled in some way. I think for you, you need to see that. It's not saying that you're, a gold digger or anything like that. That's not the dynamic I'm seeing here. But I think that there might be, it's kind of like there's almost the party girl, party boy type of energy, which is seductive and fine, but you're not kind of like committing to any of that. You're having the flirtation, but you're not going beyond that. But, sometimes that does haunt you for what it could have been, and you certainly do haunt others that way. But I think it's sort of like, the thing is that you've almost got to withdraw from the flirtation in a way, look at it differently, and wait for the person who pursues you in this very emotionally mature, here's what I have to offer, like that kind of way. That's what this looks like. So I do think a lot of this is about love, and it's got to do with that pattern of love, and that's what you want to see. You don't want to see the seductive one, but who's sort of like wild and unpredictable and can only be there for a period of time, or, like there's all sorts of circumstances that have to come together to make it even possible. You need the person who's more grounded and more mature. That's what this seems to be saying. Okay, so we're going to look at the shadows that haunt. So we're going to look at both the shadow that is haunting the person that is who is haunted by you, and also what's haunting you in a more general level. And we'll look at a question to ask, and then we'll look at a kind of more light-based spiritual energy that could help in the release of it. So the shadow that haunts this person who's very Heathcliffian, a kind of a combination of Heathcliff and Dracula, actually. The shadow that haunts them is the end, death, closure, finality. Yeah, they don't feel there's a way back. They don't feel there's a way back. And look, I've got to say, for something like them, and this would be very specific, and I don't necessarily think, maybe nobody who comes to this reading this will be the case, but there might be one. This may be someone who's passed on. So it's like an opportunity, but it's not there anymore, and that's part of the reason that haunts you. What would it have been? But I think for most, it's just that they are haunted by the fact that this cannot be resurrected. The time has passed. It's not possible. You didn't respond, whatever it might be. What is the thing that haunts you? the sprouting, growth, endurance, resilience. Yeah, you want something that can grow. There might have been something about this too. It could, for some of you, it could have been that the person was already in a relationship and it was a moment in time for an affair, and that would have been all it could have been, or something like that. Or they were there for a brief period of time, a bit like, as I say, the story that I was saying about my mother. But for you, like, what haunts you around relationships in general is like, what will grow, and how do I find what will grow? So what is the question that they could ask themselves to release themselves from this shadow? What do I criticize in others, and how does it reflect my own insecurities? Okay, so they may have become quite critical of you if you, sorry, I put this so you can see it a little bit clearer. It's just a bit of a glare there. They may have been critical of you. They may have been critical of other people. They may have that kind of edge to them. Both Heathcliff and Dracula had that kind of, they said what they thought. So there could be an energy there. And if they wanted you to act, maybe they wanted you to act and you didn't act. So they criticised you not for acting, but they didn't act either, or they didn't provide the sort of sense to you that this could grow. And if they think about that, they may, for future things, not end up in that situation. And then for you, what question would be helpful to ask about getting the growth? How do I deal with anger, and what lies beneath my anger? Okay, so you may be in that situation partly because you've sort of thought it was there before and people have let you down. But it's like, what are you looking for? And are you looking in the right place? Because you could be getting angry and then feeling it isn't working. And anger can turn into depression. So I think it's like, and this energy might make you angry. It might be very seductive, but it might make you angry. So what is that all about? And how do you turn that into something that's more growthful? So let's just get a couple of spiritual energies for each that might also be helpful. So for this person who probably failed to act, but also wanted you to act, like, all of that kind of thing. Transformation. They need to transform. Now, like, the death energy could be like the death and the tarot. They need to transform. They need to realize their part in this. And I think this person, whoever it is over. I don't think you're going to go back to them unless they change drastically, but I think they would have to change drastically. I think this is a past energy, but it's emblematic for you. And rise above it. Yeah, they need to rise above the sense that, denial and passion that is unrequited or unrealized is somehow the most passionate. They need to rise above that and see it from a higher level perspective, because it's not a healthy energy. Then for you to find the growthful energy, to find the person that's like this, I think. It's good to stretch yourself. Okay. You may have thought this sort of person was too far or above you or whatever. It's not. Like, you, as I say, the Six of Torches, Six of Wands, you do exude a lot of attractiveness. You may not realize how much. And let it come to you. Yeah, this is the thing. I think in a way there's a similarity between you and this, in as much as I think you're waiting to see someone come to you and offer you something that you could see could grow. So they need to show that. They need to prove it to you. And I understand this, in love, we often do need this. So you need that. And when it hasn't happened, or when you thought it was there and then it didn't last, you were angry, it's made you even more cautious. I think this person was all intensity but didn't actually pursue, wanted you to do it, or wanted just a moment to occur in time that would just break through everything. And then they kind of thought, well, you didn't meet them in that moment or whatever. They're kind of immature about relationships, as I say. They're intense, but it's the intensity of almost a child. And I'm not meaning to put them down too much. It's like, it's got to be exactly how they want, and they want the person to do it. You're both looking for somebody to come to yourself, sort of thing, rather than the other way around. Though I think with this one, they want the grand passion, that, like, the moment, and then and even like what was difficult in the relationship was part of what made it so enticing. Whereas for you want somebody to come to you who can actually offer you something that would last. And that's a healthier way to be, I have to say. So let's just see what stars can guide you towards getting that. Mutable. So being a little bit flexible. It's good to stretch yourself. I think you're drawn to the very Heathcliffian Dracula type, like the really intense, and maybe, the ones that are a little bit dangerous, the ones that are a little bit, known, have a bit of a reputation or whatever. You're drawn to that. Again, I'll put that up there so you can see it a bit clearer. Being a bit more flexible about finding the person who might be a little bit sort of like, not necessarily older in age, but like more mature, more settled, more grounded. That's what will help you. We have new moon, the seeding, plant what you desire. Yeah, it's all about planting and nourishing. Think of it in those terms. Don't be haunted by the things that didn't seed, because if they didn't seed, they're not worth being haunted by. Look for the thing that will seed and sprout. And Aries, tarot card Emperor. Yeah, there's something about, and it's not about preference or your gender or whatever. It's about somebody who's kind of maybe just a little bit, I'd say, more powerful or something like that. Or just more established in some way is important. I also think that while I think it is important to let them come to you, you need to then meet them halfway. Like with Aries, you also need to initiate once that connection is there. If that occurs, if you kind of meet in the middle, it can work. Okay, so to finish off, I thought this would be all very intense, and it is if you've got Dracula and Heathcliff and so forth involved in all of it. So I thought I'd just get a card from the Love Oracle. So this is historical people with their love advice, and it is just meant to be amusing. So take whatever you want from it. Sometimes it can be profound, otherwise it can just be amusing. But it's a kind of a closing set of remarks from somebody in history around this situation. Wow, I got a musical character, Jay-Z. For a second I just sort of stopped, if you want to know what I'm thinking was, is this from one of the other oracles? And I put it in there because I got a musical one, but it's not. It's actually from this. So you don't have to be looking for Jay-Z. But as I said of advice, avoid one-off deals or else make sure they are really worth it. So yeah, if you're going to sort of just go for it without the growth, then make sure it's worth it. Is very true. He says the right partner is the one who can match you and then some. Yeah, this is that. They've got to at least match you and then some. Like I think this is the right advice. And then the last one is who's going to help you run this town tonight? Yeah, it's kind of, that's the point. Where is there almost a sense of a dynasty that could be begun, a power couple? And it doesn't have to be as literal as that, but I'm just saying that kind of energy, the stuff that actually can grow and build with you, that is at least at your level, possibly even more secure, so that they can make the first move and you can then meet them halfway, as opposed to all this intensity of passion around flirtation and seduction, but maybe which isn't landing in the way that you want it to. So I hope that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, Pile 2, to your reading. So you came to the reading with The Hermit, with Roderick Usher from The Fall of the House of Usher, and Edgar Allan Poe story. And so, in a sense, the reason that The Hermit is the card for Roderick Usher is that in this story, this is sort of like a wealthy scion of a family who withdraws into his sort of like his mansion and his own world to try and understand his own demons and the things that he's done in his life and how that has kind of rippled through his family line and so forth. So it is kind of esoteric and introspective and all those sort of energies. So there's something about that. And so I think what I'm feeling now as I'm doing these readings is this is kind of shows some of the energy of the haunting on both sides. So I do think that in this case, this person, it's a person rather than a situation that is haunted by you. And I think this is you, and you are haunted by this person to some extent, but you're haunted more broadly. Like over here with Cobwebs, if I go to this first, make something memorable. This is all about the memories, the weave of our life, the cobwebs being like the weave of our life. And this is what Roderick Usher is looking at. And this is like the Hermit being introspective, understanding how the choices and so forth that you've done in your life have led to the life that you have and how that's rippled out to other people. So Roderick Usher as a character is haunted by that. And I think this is quite clear that there's something here where there is a part of you that sees the way you've interacted with others and maybe patterns within that as being part of the weave of your destiny. And that haunts you for some reason. And we will look at this in more detail with tarot. But I think that's broader. I feel like it radiates out just like the cobweb radiates out there. Whereas bats, mind what you send out, is about communication. It's about where communication has been sent and maybe not received accurately or something. I feel like there's a person who felt they tried to connect with you. This doesn't have to be romantic. It could be, but it doesn't have to be. But they felt that they tried to communicate with you and maybe the communication didn't work. And part of this might have been because you were already looking at, the patterns and you thought it might fit a pattern that you didn't want to replicate or something like that. So there's someone who felt the moment of communication, the method of communication did not work with you. And so they're haunted by that. And you're more haunted by how your choices and so forth ripple out to others. Now, the interesting thing is the thing that connects it is Uranus genius. So I think there's something about this person that would have been a potential breakthrough for you if you had come out of the introspection. And again, this doesn't have to be romantic. I'm feeling for most it actually isn't. This is much more about like friendship, like a good friend who maybe like tried to reach out at the wrong time or in the wrong way. You might have rebuffed it. You might not have heard it. There could have been communication breakdowns for any number of reasons. Or they may have withdrawn because they felt like they weren't being heard. But they actually had a spark of genius, a spark of something that could change and shift your energy. But the thing about you is that you have your own genius as well too. That's why you have created the web of life. It's like if we're not very... that kind of spark of genius or the sort of very unique thing, then maybe our impact on all the relationships is sort of variable. So for most of us, some people we will have a strong impact on and others we won't, and it kind of usually correlates with who has a strong impact on us, and that's fine. But someone who has a bit of genius, someone who is ahead of the curve, someone who's an entrepreneur or a iconoclast or any of those things, I think the impact they have has a much greater reach. So I think that the people who've come to this reading, if you feel like you're in the right reading, there's something about you that is genius, that is different, and that has a reach, but you are kind of haunted by whether that reach is understood and whether you're communicating it in a way and what the ripple effect of that is. So it does feel very entrepreneurial. It doesn't have to be in work necessarily, but it feels like it's... And it could be here that there was sort of someone, a friend, or could have been a potential lover, whatever, who had a similar sort of genius but different. And it's kind of like, how do you actually make those mix? Because if you are the entrepreneur, how do you have another one like that? If you are the iconoclast, how do you have another one who's sort of different in their iconoclasm, if that's such a word? So I think it's something like that. I think for you, you haunt others because you are so different. You do have this sort of genius. You're very kind of esoteric and mysterious, and people are trying to communicate. If they feel they can't or they can't reach you, then that has an issue. I think for you, you're very aware and you're haunted by the reach of your influence and whether it's being properly understood. So let's have a look. We're going to look with tarot. We're first going to look a little bit more about who is haunted by you and why. So what's going on with this person? And I do think it's a person rather than a situation or something like that. And then we'll have a look at what is haunting you, which I think is people and outcomes of your difference, so to speak. And then we're going to look at what releases these energies, and brings them more to the light. So firstly, a little bit more about the haunting of this person who I feel tried to reach out, didn't know quite how to do it, or maybe it was, as I say, similar to you but different, which in this situation might have been difficult. So let's see what we get. Seven of Cups reversed, Knight of Swords reversed, Knight of Ravens is swords, Seven of Ravens, that's the Seven of Swords, King of Torches, King of Wands reversed, and the World, Catherine Earnshaw. Okay, all right. Wow, okay. So the Catherine Earnshaw turning up, actually that's really interesting for this. Catherine Earnshaw turning up does suggest for some there is a romantic energy to this. Doesn't have to be, but like Catherine Earnshaw is, of course, Catherine from Catherine and Heathcliff of Wuthering Heights, like one of the great Gothic romances of all time. So I actually want to go to that first because with that reverse, with the World reverse, it feels like something is unfinished. So I think that this person feels like the door shouldn't have shut, or this is unfinished, or they may still want to connect or whatever, or they feel that there's unfinished business. That's definitely the thing. But I think it's them being drawn to the Catherine Earnshaw in you, because the thing about Catherine Earnshaw in Wuthering Heights is that she is very attractive, and she is marries providentially. She marries for a good life and all that kind of thing, and status and so forth. In her mind, she could then lift Heathcliff up, who is of lower status within her own sort of family, because of the circumstances of it. But of course, that dynamic, which then stops her and Heathcliff getting together, has its ripple effect out on the whole family. So there's a sort of an energy here that's like there's something about ripple effect on others of the choices that are made. So I think there's something about you. There's something, as I say, it's very compelling, like you're in the spotlight in some way, or people really notice you. For this person, they feel like there's unfinished business, and it could be passion that is denied with the King of Torches reversed, or it could be an ego thing going on here. See, what is interesting is that this person, the way they're looking at it, doesn't feel that sentimental, so it doesn't feel romantic. It feels more realistic, like they kind of get you and they understand you, and so they're careful. They've been careful about you. And they sort of feel like they could still maybe have a strategy. So they're haunted by like what would be the strategy to reach you, or it could be to compete with you. Like this could be a competitive thing. Somebody could be haunted by the fact that, you were a bit like, you could be Mozart to Salieri, that kind of thing. It's like the genius to the one who also has a genius, but maybe not as compelling or something like that. So for some of you, this might be a competitive thing. But for others, I think it's sort of someone who's still thinking there's a way to strategically connect with you, picking up with ravens, with swords, the communication energy of the bats. But there's an ego thing potentially associated with this. So it feels like it's more like a kind of a round two of a battle, than anything romantic or whatever. But as I say, the Catherine Earnshaw is a little bit romantic, but the rest kind of doesn't feel that way. So I think that someone is haunted by, I think maybe wanting to communicate or collaborate with you or something like that at some point, but there was an inherent rivalry or something. Whereas you're more haunted by the effect of your own genius, your own difference on others. And they may be part of that, but I feel like this is more people that are closer to you. So let's see what we get for you. So what haunts you and why? 8 of Cups reversed, 9 of Skulls, 9 of Pentacles, Page of Torches, Page of Wands reversed, 2 of Skulls, 2 of Pentacles, 6 of Chalices. Wow. Okay, now that's interesting that's falling with Catherine Earnshaw. So I think like what is wonderful about this deck is because if you understand like some of the Gothic stories, it does add a whole other layer of interpretation to it. You could be potentially haunted by this person. What I'm going to say is if you two have like a long-standing connection, like either from childhood, school, university, something like that, whether it was rivalry, whether there was a friendship, whatever it was, there could be that. But otherwise, I think there is this sort of thing to the past and the dynastic sort of feeling of the Roderick Usher character. So I feel like you're haunted by really early dreams and what you wanted something to be. And I think that there's some aspects of that you find very hard to emotionally let go of. But on the other hand, it's like you had to be the different person. You had to be independent. So there's almost like a separation out from family. For some of you, you might have separated from your family because you were just so different. And that's part of it. And the weave of your life, how important has that been and so forth for you to pursue your genius, for your change energy, all that kind of thing. But there's a kind of an independence, but a residual emotional energy around that. And it almost looks to me like you have, in many ways, forsaken either passion for material choices, or it might be that you have a very creative side as well as a material side, but you decided to choose towards the material. So I'm not sure. It will depend upon who comes here, but I think it's all about what's the impact of that. So if you did have some really strong connections with family or with people that you've loved and people you grew up with or went to university with or whatever, but you don't want to separate out from those, but you had to materially make the choices that you needed. That may have been that you kind of put passion on the back seat, or there might have been in your youth a creative sort of energy that connected with your genius that you put aside for the more material outcome. This is one of the things that Roderick Usher, having created, like a dynasty or whatever, has to think about. What were the costs of that to the innocence almost and the emotion of family and childhood and so forth. So I think for you, there's something that haunts you about that, about the choices that you made where material outcomes and manifesting your genius, your difference was involved. But I think for the other person, it's much more there. It's kind of a rivalry, I think. I think that's what we're really seeing there. So let's see what would release the energy. We'll just get 4 cards for that. The Hierophant, Father Ambrosio. Oops. The Page of Cups reversed. The Queen of Swords. And the 6 of Swords. Now, to be honest, I'm not familiar with Father Ambrosio, so I just paused to have a look at the book. And it said it's a character by a author, Matthew Lewis, but doesn't say the book. Some of you may know. If you do know, put it in the comments. But really what it's saying is that this was a character of great learning, and it could be very spiritually and sort of academically supportive and important, but it also could be rigid. So there's something here about exploring rigidity, and particularly for both of you, what's the emotional impact of this? Because both of you are kind of unemotional. And right from the beginning, it's sort of this could have been a fantastic friendship, even a fantastic love. It depends on what we're talking about here. Or it could be, the love of a sibling, and there could be sibling rivalry involved. But there's sort of understanding the impact on the emotional side of a kind of rigidity to the ambition. I think that's important. Also, I think it's saying, particularly, well, for either of you, because there's a spark of genius here, learning could really help, but it has to be connected with the heart as well. And at the moment, it's very much, both of you are very much within your mind. Very clever, it's very clever energy. But it's that cleverness should be leading towards peace between you and peace within your family group, social group, whatever it is, rather than kind of almost stoic being on your own. So I do think that if you are, instead of Roderick Usher sort of just withdrawing from the world altogether, if it's using the introspection to understand that, those sort of things, the passion, the love, all of that stuff is still there. It's just that you've made choices that were material, but I think you would have actually achieved a lot now. It's how do you now focus on that side of things as well too, and bring your genius and your intelligence to that. As to the other person, they either get over the rivalry or they don't. But I think for you, it's much more about the relationships that matter to you. So let's have a look in a little bit more detail about the shadow and how to deal with that and either thing. So we'll look at the shadow for the person who I think is kind of got an ongoing rivalry with you, and the shadow for you around how you think your choices have impacted your connections with others. We'll look at a question that you could ask to help with that, and then we'll also look at some spiritual light energy around it. So the shadow for, I think, a rival. That's what I think is operating here. The potential, creativity, fate, possibility. Yeah, this person, I feel like you've been successful at something and they haven't quite got there. And it literally might have been in a competition or whatever. They may want to communicate with you to learn from you or whatever. That's possible. It may be if this person communicates with you, even if there was some rivalry, but it's more to learn from you, that could actually be a way to deal with this and bring peace into the energy. But it does. It feels like someone who had a lot of potential, but you've actually actualized whatever it is. And that's the shadow for them, because they're still in the potential situation. You're in the actualized, and so you're looking at the fallout of the actualized. They're in the potential. And then the shadow for you around the more broader impact of what you've done. The powerful, tenacity, control, knowledge. Yeah, it's what are you doing with your control, with your knowledge, with your dynasty, with your learning? It's what is that all about? How do you deal with power? For you, that is like, because of the difference, the genius, the sense of being able to build something materially, there's something about power for you that you need to deal with, and understanding that and how that has a shadow effect. For them, it's trying to come to terms with maybe how they realize their potential, particularly if they can't realize it to the same degree as you. So a question that would help them around their shadow: what are the limiting beliefs that hold me back in life? And part of it might be if they go in competition to someone else, then they're never really exploring themselves. Whereas I think you explored yourself, I think, and then what you wanted to materially do with it. What is a question that can help you deal with the power and the flow effect of the power on your life? How do I handle change, and what resistance do I have to it? Okay, so that's the rigidity. Once you reach a particular level, like for some of you, it might be even someone in your family, like a child of yours or something that has the potential, but like that's a tricky relationship in the sense of like, how does the child find themselves when they have a very powerful parent, for instance, that kind of thing. So it just depends on how it's playing out. But this is suggesting that you are hitting a point. What's haunting you now with the ripple effect of everything is wanting to change, and maybe to bring the passion and the heart back into something. And how do you do that? And what is the resistance that you might have? So let's look at some light energy that can help you. But we'll first of all look at the light energy that would help this person. Because for some of you, this may be someone who is actually in your family or close to you or whatever, or someone who's a mentee and you're the mentor. Like, it's an interesting energy, but it's like their potential compared to yours and how they navigate that really haunts them. So what are some things that could help? Your soul is resilient. Well, they need to understand they're resilient enough to do this, and that what is different about them to you. And fertility and prosperity. It's kind of, they need to go and and this could be literal or figurative, but they've got to kind of go and make their own dynasty. One of the things about you is you are resilient, I think. Like you were able to kind of almost have the delayed gratification and look at the material choices and build. So if they were going to take anything from you rather than competing with you, that would be the thing to do. But they have to create their own. It's really important. They can't be you. This might be someone who's a bit of a mini-me for some people as well. Then for you, dealing with the power of having achieved, but then it's like the ripple effect on everybody else. We have give or receive healing energy. So think of it as like the heart connecting on an energetic level. That might be the first sort of step. And then this is the end. Now that's interesting because it's like the fall of the House of Usher. It's not saying that what you've achieved is going to fall, but I think it's saying that there does need to be a profound shift from just looking at what you build to then the sustenance of that and the heart and the passion of that. I think that's the energy, and like going into healing for yourself and for others is what will help with that. Okay, let's get you to some stars to guide you in doing that. Waxing gibbous moon, adjustments, clarify your direction and intention. Yeah, it's not giving up what you've done before or even really ending in the sense it's over. It's just, it's achieved. So what do you do next? And how do you handle that change? Like what's involved in that? So it's an adjustment period for you. Gemini, communication is very important. How you communicate with others, how you connect with others, all of that kind of thing. But you have got a great mind. Like the Queen of Ravens, Queen of Swords is a Gemini card. So like your mind and your communication skills are going to be really important to this. And Aquarius, okay, being a little bit transpersonal. It's like, I feel like there's a very personal energy to this, but it's sort of almost as though stepping away from the direct impact on those closest to you and thinking on a more transpersonal level helps you communicate in a way that will then ultimately help you connect with those that you're closer to. It's like the adjustment, and it may also be an adjustment of communication to have a transpersonal understanding, but to communicate more with those that you care about. So there's sort of some shift around the focus and the level and type of communication. So to finish off, I thought I'd just do something lighthearted because Gothic literature is sort of not lighthearted, and I thought the messages in this would not be lighthearted. So we're using the Lover's Oracle. This is just people in history. They have their kind of love and passion advice, and it is often just funny. So If that's what we get, that's fine. If there's something that really is profound for you, take that as well. So, wow. Got sort of a very modern person, Courtney Love. So she says, if rock stars are like the leaders of a religious cult, be the unvirgin Mary. So yeah, there is something like you lead a dynasty or something like that. You're very compelling in what you do. But it's like, be your genius self. There's nothing wrong with being your genius self. She says, be more than human, be a force of nature. And yeah, I think you probably are. But it's like, how do you change and connect that with others without overwhelming them? I do think it's something you have to think about. And she says, be ambitious. It doesn't matter if you don't know where you're going. And like this might be, you're ambitious before in creating something out of your genius. Now you can be ambitious about connecting with others. You can use that same strength to do it, but don't lose yourself in that. You know, you don't have to lessen yourself for this. You don't have to, if this is someone who is close to you and they're pushing back on how you make them feel lesser or whatever, it's not about lessening yourself. It's about helping them lift themselves up. So I hope that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 3, to your reading. So you came to the reading with the Strength card, which is, of course, about strength and being able to deal with adversity and patience and resilience and all of those sort of things. And it's represented here by Mina Harker. Now, the first thing I would say about this is that if you read the original Dracula, Mina, and this makes sense why she would be with the Strength card, remains, stoic and strong, even dealing with Dracula around, stayed true to the people that she loved, all of that kind of thing, and was, very much the heroine of the story. But the way that Dracula has been changed as a story over time, and some of the sort of more recent movie adaptions and things like that, whether you're talking about around about late 1970s to early 1980s, there was a stage play and then a film of Dracula that Frank Langella played Dracula, and he's probably my all-time favourite Dracula. Very appealing portrayal. He was Dracula in that, and then it not dissimilarly in Bram Stoker's Dracula a number of years later with Gary Oldman. Dracula was transformed into this romantic hero, and in both of them fell for, well, in fact, it was not Mina in the first Dracula. They swapped Mina and Lucy's roles. But nevertheless, there was the main female character, and she became a pursuit of love by Dracula rather than just another victim. And her strength was in that connection as opposed to in the connection to the others and how that all played out. So I've got a feeling here when I look at this is more like the more recent version than the actual novel, because when we look at Who's Haunted by You, this looks like someone from way back, like either way back to childhood, early school, early university or something like that, or somebody who has been in the past a connection with you. That I think with hide and seek, when it's saying reconnect with needs, may have run away from an opportunity to be connected. So it's sort of like it's something from the past, or may have been sort of hidden away from you in some way. So hiding, and you might have sought them, or they may have felt you were hidden from them and they were seeking you. So it feels more like the kind of Dracula finding, particularly maybe Bram Stoker's Dracula movie. Not his book, but the movie that was called Bram Stoker's Dracula with Gary Oldman, as I say, and Winona Ryder and so forth. It feels like someone who from your past would want to seek you out. So there's a history. It's someone that you have quite a history with. And I guess that makes sense if you're going to haunt somebody, but it feels like it's very long term, and it feels like it's quite intense, and it goes way back, because it's like either it's as children or as a past life or something like that. That's the energy I get. There's someone like that. And they may both want to seek you out, but they might also be trying to hide some of that past as well. There's an interesting energy, and they're trying to reconnect with what they wanted from you. But they may kind of watch you from afar rather than actually seeking you out at this point. It's an interesting energy. And I think for you, whether it's this person or love in general, but I suspect it might be this person, there might have been something about them that appeared to be dangerous or didn't fit in with your kind of lifestyle or whatever it might be, because we've got the 6th house routine, which is like the general routines of life, and how you serve others, and just, kind of like the kind of stoicism and the strength in that sense of Amina Harker, and being part of your family and your society, and kind of just doing the right thing. And this might have been an energy that was a little bit more hidden. But I think it's an energy that you might be drawn to as well. Because for you, what haunts you with stars, it's possible, is knowing that things are more vast than just the routine. That there is a North Star you could follow, that something that seemed impossible might be possible. So I feel like, and it's interesting, you get a sense of night and the moon there, and of course, the kind of the vampiric energy here around, anything that's got characters from Dracula. I feel as though you were drawn to the possibilities that were maybe denied because of like routine or status, or just what people said was the sensible thing to do. And either you hid from or someone hid from you because of it, the dissonance of that at that time. But there's sort of like a sense with both of you of this still could be something. So that's the sort of energy I'm getting about. I feel like it's more like that. I feel like it's more like the more recent Dracula energy because of the other cards that we've got. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at what's really haunting this person. Then we're going to look at what's haunting you. And we'll just get a sense, because maybe this is a broader thing about the possibilities of your life beyond just the stoic and what is routine. And that might be what's haunting you rather than other people. And this person might be seeing that and kind of watching it from a distance. So we'll just see what we get for this. So firstly, what this person, then you, and then what kind of releases the energy, releases the haunting. So what about you is haunting this person who's represented by the hide and seek character? That's the Page of Wands. That's the Nine of Wands reversed. That's the Knight of Pentacles reversed. That's the High Priestess, obviously. And that's the Queen of Pentacles reversed. Okay. Very interesting. First thing, we might jump to the Major Arcana card because of the literary allusion or literary character here. Bertha Mason was Rochester's wife in Jane Eyre. I might just double check that. So I've got my characters right. Yes. So she was the potentially mad person locked up in the attic, but she's being represented here as someone with great secrets and the kind of esoteric understanding and the depth psychology. So there's something very deep in this, and there's a very strong psychology, and there's something very secret about it. So I think there was something very secret in general about this energy. Whether they were very secret about it, this could be a secret admirer. But it could also be that if the two of you had been together in some way, it would have had to be secret. Because it's interesting, we've got the Queen of Skulls reverse, or the Queen of Pentacles reverse, and the Knight of Skulls reverse. It's like there's something that was hard to materialize, and it might have been back when that was, and it may be something to shift by, but it feels like, either it wouldn't have fitted in with the routines of the life. There was something material that was difficult that made it hard to commit, but there was a lot of passion or a lot of energy here. It could be that it's sort of someone you were with someone else, and your sort of loyalty, again with the Mina Harker thing, to that kind of precluded doing anything, but there was always that sort of sense of, in another life or in another world it could have been possible. But there's something very materially difficult. So it was very secret, very intense. And there was something like it's really touchy with the Nine of Wands or Nine of Torches reversed. The people around it, the situation was very, very touchy, but there was a lot of passion, but that could have inspired a kind of fire, a burning down of things. This is why I think it was kind of like, it was almost maybe this person blew hot and cold, and it was a bit hard for you to read what was going on. So you've always thought there was a possibility, but you weren't sure. But it also had to do with materially, or in the routines in your life, or in what you were committed to, or what they were committed to was hard. It could have been someone they might have been in a relationship and they had a passion for you, and it was just not going to be possible on that level. But this is deep, and it's remained. It's very, very secret, though. Something very, very secret about it. So as I say, you may not even know, or you might have suspected. If you've suspected someone's had a thing for you, but it would have been difficult for kind of pragmatic reasons, you're probably right. And they're still haunted. So let's see about you. What are you haunted by? Is it that as the possibility, or is it possibilities in general? Got the Seven of Skulls, so the Seven of Pentacles reversed. The Hermit, Roderick Usher from the Fall of the House of Usher. Queen of Torches, so Queen of Wands reversed. The Hanged Man, Quasimodo. Oh, wow. The Star, Ligella. Wow. Sorry, I was just checking that's Ligeia, not Ligella. It's a Edgar Allan Poe story. I'm not familiar with it, but she's obviously, from what the book is saying, she's a kind of figure that transcends death, transcends, almost can move in the liminal, very spiritual, very psychic kind of energy. So, why I said wow is like the characters that we're looking at here. And then with the Queen of Torches reversed, Seven of Skulls reversed, there is something about it, whether it's this person or whether it's the possibilities outside of your routines. You are very loyal and very stoic to your routines, to caring for others, all of that sort of thing. That side of Mina Harker from the original novel actually fits, though I do think the energy of this is more like, as I say, the more recent Dracula sort of stories. But you're haunted by things that couldn't grow or didn't grow. So I think there is something here. I think for most of you, you know who this person is. Some you may not, but like it may be more generally. It might be there was like the possibilities and whether they could have grown or not, and you maybe didn't do it. And with Queen of Wands reverse, it's kind of you're haunted a bit by underestimating yourself, both your attractiveness to others, I think, but also just what is possible within you for your passions. So there's a kind of, okay, I'll be very sixth house, I'll be very loyal and all that kind of thing, as opposed to just pursuing the passions and the possibilities. So that's a kind of general energy for you. You have a tendency to go within because of that rather than step out into the world. So stepping out into those possibilities, that's what haunts you. Like, could you do that? Could you create something? Roderick Usher is very introspective. He was a scion of a family, but it's the fall of the House of Usher, so another Edgar Allan Poe story. So there's a sort of like, what is, it's almost as though you're haunted by the potential loss of what is secure, or even like the approval of your family potentially, if you go towards something for passion that may not be growth in that normal sort of way. So there's something like that going on. And I feel like you don't realize how attractive you are because this person's really besotted. I feel like with Quasimodo, the Hanged Man, he sort of like never felt good enough. I mean, you are. Like, I think Mina, as I say, this is why it's important, the more recent versions of Dracula. She moved from just being a victim of Dracula to being his great love. It's sort of like, there's almost like a similar shift from the original version. So there's like an original version of you that maybe is when this happened, where you felt you were kind of the person in the family who wasn't sort of seen as the sort of really attractive one, or the one that was sort of very seductive or whatever. And you're shifting now towards that, but you need to be able to shift and understand that because you're still seeing yourself in that way. And you might, it's only really almost in the liminal that you can like see the possibilities and get an idea of the direction you could go in with that. And it's kind of drawing you, the stars and the moon and all that kind of thing. But on the other hand, it's like there's a lot of self-doubt. And I think it has to do, this has got to do with really early conditioning, I think, about who you were. Like the sort of like, fairy story, the ugly duckling, you felt like that and then you have become the swan, but maybe you don't realize that kind of thing is operating here on one level or another. And that's what haunts you. It's like, on one level, but on another level, you don't trust that you could do it. And yet this person, like if they weren't kind of like hiding what they're feeling or whatever, or if they didn't back at that time, or if it had been allowed, if it was sort of like felt like, no, that's not for you. So the other sort of stories I would sort of think of that are like this, like the ugly duckling, but also things like, Pride and Prejudice, like, was Lizzie going to end up with Darcy? Nobody thought that really until the end. It was sort of because of the ideas that people had about the characters and what the family and where that fitted in and what the ideas they had about him. There's something like that. It's the idea of you and the reality of you are a bit dissonant. And the reality of you is more this potentiality, this star energy. But I don't think that you realise. I don't think you realise how attractive you are. So what could release that energy for you? Knight of Torches reversed, so Knight of Wands reversed, the Fool reversed, Nine of Cups reversed, King of Swords. So, I think understanding the degree to which you might have quelled your own passion And slowing down a bit and looking at that, looking at all the possibilities and really looking at them is important. Understanding where you've denied a wish and bringing it to the surface psychologically. I think, there's this sense of, I mean, again, Jane Eyre didn't feel like she was attractive to Rochester, but she really, really was. So it's like understanding that kind of energy, understanding how attractive you are. But it's like you have to sort of slow down and consider that. And bring it to your mind and understand, look at what actually has happened as opposed to whatever you've sort of got, the stories you've used to telling yourself, to ones that are actually more balanced. I feel like there's something like a rerun. So whether it is saying this person is still around and could come back and you could look at it, or whether it's like you kind of go back and you look at your life, you unpack your life and you actually see it more clearly so that you can move forward knowing what you want and being more connected to it. The other thing that's interesting here is that Jonathan Harker is the character who the Fool is representing. So he, of course, was the one who was marrying Mina. Now, in the original Dracula, they remained loyal to each other. She just became, a victim of Dracula. But in the more sort of modern versions, there was a kind of a love triangle operating around all of that. So I think that there's also sort of a sense here of understanding where things weren't clear around all that kind of thing, and where it was necessary to decide whether a shift from what had been established to something that wasn't established is necessary. But the Fool reverse to me is like, like you have the wisdom to do it and to become the King of Swords, or King of Ravens, King of Swords in that way, like to actually really understand what you're doing. But you do have to understand, firstly, how you've subdued your own passion and your own dream for that to happen. And maybe this person can help, or maybe just remembering that dynamic will help. So let's have a look. Let's have a look at the shadow for this person and the shadow for you under those circumstances. We'll look at a question you could ask that could help with that, and then some light energy as well. So the shadow for this hide and seek person who, I think most of you probably will be able to guess who this is, but if not, they've been very good at the hiding bit. But they've definitely held a torch for you and still do. We have the regrets, disappointment, hurt, expectations. Yeah, they wanted something, but it failed to ignite. So there is they hold a lot of regret. Maybe they didn't speak when they needed to speak, or maybe they didn't show how they felt, and so you didn't sort of realize, and you stayed in this sort of feeling that you were just kind of duty bound or whatever. But they have a lot of regret about this, and it goes way back. What about for you? What's the shadow for you? The broken, addiction, damage, wounded. Yeah, you're carrying a wound. Like the weird thing is, like Mina Harker, well, she was wounded by Dracula. Like that's true. She was bitten by Dracula. But you're carrying a wound that is kind of distorting your view of your possibilities and who you are. So, and it's interesting how this is presented, because look at this. You've got like the eyes. This person's, what would that be? That would be their right eye, wouldn't it? And that's their left eye. Look, when one looks at their perspective as opposed to just looking at them. But like one eye there is being sort of like hidden in a sense, or the clarity is hidden by passion. And this one, it's sort of like there's a sense of the wound to the self and to how you think you're seen and what you see. So neither of you are seeing completely clearly. This one has a lot of regret, and maybe they didn't fully understand what the dynamic was going on with you. And for you there's something, whether it's about this relationship or more generally, you carry this wound to your self-esteem, which you really shouldn't have. I mean, it's easy for me to say, but the cards are quite clear that you shouldn't have it, but you do kind of have it. So what's the question that would help them deal with their regrets? What unresolved trauma am I carrying, and how does it affect my daily life? Like, yeah, they're carrying a huge torch for you. And maybe there was some trauma for them as well. That was what, like for some of you, like because like a child, maybe they had some childhood trauma that affected how they could interact with you in the first place. For you, what question would help you with the wound that you're carrying? What are the things I feel unworthy of having or experiencing? Yeah, you're really down on yourself, pile 3, and you shouldn't be. You know, you're very attractive, but you kind of don't think that. You think that, you're for the sort of day-to-day life and not the sort of seduction and the fun, but you really transcend that. So what's some light energy to help the person who's haunted by you? Magic emotion. There is something very magical about this. There's a lot of characters that are very liminal, magical, high priestess, the star, all of that kind of thing. I think that there is a magic in what this person, like their energy could have a magical effect on you. Also, you coming to realize who you are could have a magical effect on them. And call on your guides for help there. This one needs to really connect to their magic and to their spiritual energy to come out of this, particularly if they do want to approach you again. But even if they don't, like for them, they need to do this to stop being haunted by it. What about for you? It's all energy and expression. Like, yeah, it's kind of like you're denying certain energy and expression in yourself, and when you bring that out, you'll start to realize it. It's like, and if there were wounds before, it's just energy and expression. Let it go, like don't let it define you. And break free. Yeah, break free of these sort of like stories you've told yourself, because you're more than that. So let's see if the stars can guide you, pile 3. First quarter, picking up speed, make decisions, align actions and words. Yeah, like once you actually get this, you can move quite quickly with it. You can really shift that energy. Think of this as a new beginning. Fixed. Okay, so this could either be what you have to deal with it. You might be a little bit too fixed in your views, and you've got to kind of like to break free of that. You've got to break free of that fixed energy. Or it might be once you start to see yourself on that line, stick with it. Don't go into self-doubt. And 10th house. So you're actually probably very successful in terms of your material world. And that's, the 6th house as well. The dedication you've had and all that kind of stuff has been successful. I think there's something in that if you apply that same degree of confidence to, your sense of attractiveness, love and all that kind of thing, you achieve the same thing, because you really are. You see yourself as less than how other people see you. But you come across as sort of like very dutiful and very modest, and like it's a little bit hard to get through to you, I think. So just be aware of that. So to finish off, we're just going to get hopefully something a bit lighthearted, because Gothic based readings are usually pretty full on, and this is pretty full on. So we're just using the love oracles, which has people in history and their love advice, and it could just be funny. I don't just take it as humorous if that's the case, but if anything really fits for you, take that as well. And for you, we get, wow, Queen Victoria. Yeah, talk about duty. Talk about duty. But she had a great love. So it's possible for you if you haven't felt it. But yeah, duty, really strong duty sense here. And it's like, I think it's about find your passion and your love as well. You are worthy of both. So she says, I would venture to warn against too great intimacy with artists as very seductive and a little dangerous. So maybe this person seemed very bohemian or artistic or whatever. So it's sort of like find the right person for you. We've got no girl would go to the altar if she knew all. Okay, so I think that might be just more like having this such a sense of just the duty of it. You need the passion, you need all the things, because otherwise, yes, it would just be a very, this is my role and this is all I'm stuck with. And she says, the important thing is not what they think of me, but what I think of them. Yeah, that's the point. Do you, what do you think of them? Are they worthy of your love and all that kind of thing? Raise your own sense of worth, because you are underestimating yourself, pile 3. So I hope that this resonates, because I really do think, you're meant to be this really romantic figure, much more than what you've maybe prescribed for yourself. And this is something that's been inculcated in you from very young, but like you really, really do have more, and you can have more with this. And someone really regrets not having that passion with you, and they're probably not the only one, to be honest. So this is about breaking yourself free and knowing the success that you have had in the material sort of side of life you can do in the romantic as well. So I hope that resonates. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings.